It's Lil Baby.
Let's do this. Oh shit, you episode 10. Yeah, no, congrats, bro. Yo. Welcome to episode 10 of Conversations with Chai. Today we have New York's villain of the week, model. You might have seen him on Desi Me Dating. We got with us Nick. Yo.
What's up?
Yeah, appreciate you doing this, Nick. Yo, I want to preface this by saying, like, yo, me and Nick just got to talk for like 30 minutes. And honestly, yo, y'all did him dirty. Like, this is like a nice, sweet guy. I'm gonna put my stamp on it for real. Like,
I appreciate that.
like,
Thank you.
bro, I was nervous because like I was like, again, like I'd seen you on the Popshift thing, right?
Yeah.
So then I see you at the whatever party we were at, and I was like, yo, like let me just ask him. But I was like genuinely worried because obviously the only perception is the Popshift video.
Yeah.
But dude, no, you're like a nice guy. Like you're like we had a whole conversation right now. You're chilling.
I know. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll say this, right? Just my little 2 cents. Don't believe everything you see on the internet.
Dude, and you know what's funny? I knew exactly that was the case, and that's why I wanted to even do this, right?
Yeah.
Because I like I'm watching it and I'm just like, oh, I get it. Like I get like where you're like coming from, but I also get that shit is gonna be received terribly.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I think the subtext of what you were saying, like I know in your heart, like I know you're not like a bad guy, right? It's like, yo, you really believe it. But the thing is the way that it came off.
Yeah.
Some of the comments, like, what are you thinking, right? Like you like look through the comment section, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, like the comments don't bother me that
Mhm.
much, just because when you're in this space, everyone has their own opinion about you and what you do, and if you let that control how you feel, then you will never get past your own insecurities and other people's insecurities that they project onto you, right? And this is something that I've had to learn in this space. But in regards to the pop shift thing, I'll just say these two things, right? Before we started recording, I was asked to play a character. And so I did, and then I was asked to lean into that character. And so that's what you see on the video.
Wait, are you saying that you actually got like produced? Like somebody came to you and said that from Popshift?
Yeah, so with the first date, I don't know if they're gonna air the second one because of something that's sort of been happening, and I'll tell you about that. But before the first date started, I showed up and I was pretty intoxicated because I have like horrible social anxiety, and so I was like worried about going on this date with somebody that I don't know. And when I got there, I was talking to the producers, and one of the main things that people started to like rip at me on was the fact that I was like, "Oh, hey, my name's Nikhil. I'm 24. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a full-time model." In the introduction video, but that's because when I showed up, I was like, "Hey, my name's Nikhil. I'm 24. I'm excited to be here." The producers are like, "No, say your name, age, height, like occupation, everything." And I was like, I don't really want to. Like, it feels kind of unnecessary."
Yeah.
They're like, "No, say everything." And so I did, right? I was told what to say a lot of the time. And then when I gave them certain answers, they're like, "Okay, listen, like, can you say that with more of like a fuckboy sort of like persona?" And so I was like, "Okay, like, sure." And so that's why you see a lot of these clips where if you watch the video, I feel like you can kind of tell that a lot of these are clipped, yeah. And a lot of what I'm saying is not being included, especially the explanations, context clues, personal stories, etc. It's for a reason.
Okay, so like let's get into that then. So
Yeah.
I would ask you then, like in that spot, like why not just be like, yo, nah, I'm not doing it. Because at the end of the day, like you're still putting your name, your reputation,
Yeah.
your career at face, like whatever audience it is, right? Like, and it is an audience, right? Like Popshift probably did like 20,000 off of that, right?
Mhm.
So you are signing up by you agreeing to play said character, like now that's it. That's what it is, right? Because
Yeah.
most people aren't gonna get a chance to meet you. Obviously, like things like this and like doing more media probably will, but you why even say like yeah to it?
I
Like,
mean, in the moment, I knew what I signed up for, right? And it's one of those things where in the industry, when you sign off on things, when you're like, cool, I'll sign this document, if you show up and you say no, that's like a bad look. And I want to have a good relationship with Popshift. And I'll make this very clear. I think the entire team is great, right? I had a great time working with them. The only negative thing that came out of this experience was just the feedback from viewers who I don't really care about, right? Just the people who are messaging like, or who are commenting weird shit, right? That's the shit that I don't care about. But overall, I had a great experience with it. Also, when I did the episode, I didn't think that the feedback would be like this. I thought people could tell that it was satire. I thought people could tell that I was just like leaning into this whole fuckboy persona. But it didn't seem like people got that.
I don't think that like you can expect that level of discernment from the average viewer because you have to think about like, yo, if again, right, like you know people, and that's why I was like surprised because like I've heard about like just you like around like New York City, right? Like people like know who you are. Like we have mutual friends, right?
Mhm.
So, and I've never heard anything like negative, right? So then like, but I get that like level of context. Most people that are gonna watch this are not gonna get that
Yeah,
level of
yeah, yeah,
context,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
It's
you're just saying you're fine with these
yeah,
consequences.
it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really care. It's just social media, right? A lot of people forget that social media is literally just social media. In this kind of situation, if I'm if my portrayal on Popshift is a little negative and people just think I'm like, kind of a fuckboy, that's fine because that's not going to affect any campaigns that I do. No casting director is going to like see me and be like, oh my God, that's that guy on Popshift. Yo, we can't have him. That shit doesn't happen in the real world. It's just social media. So I don't really care.
Interesting that you say that. You really think that though? Like you think
Yeah.
that the level of connection that like just like space is in general, not just any like just how media goes around, right?
Dude, social media is so fickle. People remember you like you could be the biggest thing one week and then
Yeah.
nobody the next. So if it's a little thing like this where I'm getting a little bit of hate
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
of a online reality dating show, something that is so inconsequential. What I said, even if some of my opinions were quote unquote controversial,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? I feel like a lot of people understand that it's reality TV, right? A lot of it is doctored. Whatever you're getting is not an unadulterated version of what I said. For example, right, just to give you some context, in one of the clips, I said, I don't think relationships should have compromise. Verbatim, what happened was, um, Pip, right? The girl who I went on a
Yeah,
date with.
yeah, yeah.
She's like, "Hey, do you want to be in a relationship?" And I look at her and I ask her, I'm like, "Okay, are you asking me if I'm looking for a relationship?" And she said, actually, she didn't say anything. She nodded,
Mhm.
right? So I continued. I was like, "All right, I don't think that looking for a relationship makes sense because when you start looking for a relationship, then you start to compromise. And I don't think that there should be compromise in a relationship. As a viewer, what you don't see is my explanation after that saying that I don't think compromises should feel like compromises in a relationship. When
You
you're
just
with
want to do it.
yeah, because you want to do it. And obviously, like I'm speaking in hyperbole, right? I don't mean there should be no compromises in a relationship. I mean on the big things. Obviously, for example, if I want to sleep on the right side of the bed, my partner wants to sleep on the right side of the bed, and now I have to sleep on the left side. I'm not compromising. We're in the same bed. It doesn't matter. But if I have
Nah,
to,
yo, that's a compromise.
that's not a
I be taking that
compromise.
shit mad seriously. No, no, no.
All
I
right,
need
yeah,
my
yeah.
side
Maybe
of the
you're the
bed.
red flag.
I need my yo.
Maybe you're
That's
the red
you know.
flag.
No, no, no. You know when people talk about non-negotiables, that is
Yeah,
my non-negotiable.
that's
I need my
crazy.
side of the
That's
bed.
crazy.
I need my
Yeah.
sleep, dog.
No, but like if you're fundamentally changing who you are as a person to be with somebody else, I don't think you should be with that person. And that's what I was implying with I don't think there should be compromises in a relationship. But a lot of people don't get that because that's not what they're shown.
And you're saying that like you're just and like I asked you this, I already got the answer, but you're saying like you're just fine with those consequences, right? Because like me and you talked outside a little bit, and you're talking about like yo, not bad interactions around, right? But like uncomfortable
Weird interactions.
interactions,
Yeah. I mean
weird
like
interactions, right? Because I think that's what happens a lot too, especially because like we're talking about like yo, social media isn't everything, but a lot of people do view that, right?
mm,
So then you're met with, oh, like you're that guy, right? And now you're outside and you're not really that person, but you
I'm
what are you supposed to
approached.
do? Like, are you trying to like now shape their viewing of you?
Yeah, that's not my job. Like if you choose to believe I'm an asshole, right? And like there's nothing I could do to change that. Right? People love to believe what they want to believe. And if I'm the asshole in in your world, then there's nothing that I could do to directly change that unless you and I have a very upfront direct conversation or experience that really changes how you see me. And most of the time that can't happen because the people who do come up and talk to me, they come up to me at parties and we can't have a normal conversation. Right? Also, yeah, these when I get approached in public about Pop Shift, it is kind of weird because people are like, "Oh, you're that guy from Pop Shift." I'm like, "Hey, yeah, like nice to meet you. Hope you're having a great night, whatever." And most of the time it's gonna be girls who are just like, "Oh, like, yeah, I watched the video, like, you're such a red flag. Oh, you're such an asshole." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I'm not in a position right now to change your perception of me. We're at a fucking party. Like, if you want to talk to me, cool, we can talk, but I don't want to be berated to my face,
Mhm.
you know? Like, obviously don't come up to me and call me an asshole like 5 times and say I'm a walking red flag and then like discredit what I do. Right. But if you want to talk to me and like if you're genuinely open to me changing your mind about who I am, by all means, I'll have that conversation with you.
I Yo, I have a question for you, and then I want to get
Yeah,
into
yeah,
my
yeah,
little
yeah.
spiel. Would you call yourself jaded?
No, I think,
Okay.
or it depends. On some things, yeah, maybe. But
I
what are you
think
asking about?
I think, dude, like you're like I like view like a lot of the things that you're saying, right? Like I think like make sense, but make sense from like a cynical mind a little bit.
Explain.
I think like I think it does probably bother you a little bit. Like you're human, right? That these people are like now shaping you into something, right? You may not, you may say like, "Yo, I don't care about the opinion," right? But to say that it doesn't like, because wouldn't you rather like, if it was just the two options, right? They could either come up to you and say you're an asshole, right, or come up to you and say like, "Yo, Nick, you're the coolest guy ever," right? You would take.
I mean, I don't care.
You wouldn't take the Nick, I'm coolest guy ever.
If I had to choose, yeah, I'd choose that, right? But I don't have that control.
You're like fine with the indifference.
Yeah, I'll care when it's somebody who means something to me. But if you're literally just a random person who just decides in the middle of this party, oh, I see that guy from Popshift, let me just go say some shit to him. I'm just gonna take it. I'll be like, all right, cool. Hey, it was nice to meet you. All right. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you have a good night. And then that's it. Because in my mind, I'll forget about you in 5 seconds.
Yo, just a little bit of just food for thought. You
Yeah.
don't gotta agree, right? Just food for thought. I would say that you don't like that attitude, like, hey, like I'm not gonna do that in front of XYZ casting director, right? I would say that we don't know whose uncle is who's who at whatever
True.
brand, right? Like I think it's like it's a disservice. Like I think that it would be a disservice to you, right? To not try to keep as many interactions exchanges positive because it might you don't know it might help your
No,
career,
that's the thing. I do
right?
keep them positive. What
Okay.
I'm saying is, when people come up to me, I'm not going to be an asshole to them.
Yeah.
I'm just approaching this. When people do come up to me, I'm very receptive. I'm
Hmm.
always just like, of course, let's have this conversation. Right. But I know in my mind that like I have to be
Yo,
extra
Nick, I
nice.
think it's the tone, dog.
Yeah.
I
You
think
think
it's the
so?
tone. I think everything you say,
Yeah.
right? Like I was like, yo, if he did it with like a smile
Yeah.
and like a little bit more inflection, I'd be like, oh, like I believe it, right?
Yeah.
But I think what it is
Do I
when
just
people,
look like I'm
yeah, I think that's what it is, right? Like I really think we talked about getting typecasted outside, right? I think
yeah.
you're getting typecasted,
Maybe,
bro.
maybe. But like that's just how I look. Okay, I'm gonna try to do the rest of this with like a big ass smile on my face and see if this entire narrative changes.
Yo, see, because
Yeah.
bro, that's what I like. Yo, I got it too, right?
Sick,
He
sick,
looked
sick.
like an
Alright.
asshole,
Alright,
right?
I'll try to look nice.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people are like, yo, he looks like an asshole, right? Bro, that's just
Yeah.
how I look. I just happen to have piercings and a fade and a beard, right?
Exactly,
But
yeah.
that don't make me a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, nah, but I think like, yo, I really do think that like you, bro, I think you seem like a solid dude, right? Whatever interactions we've had have always been positive, right?
Yeah.
Like I felt like comfortable, like from the second I was like, yo, like, this is a chill guy. But I really do think that it ends up down to like how it's being interpreted, right? And that's like a whole different like conversation in the sense of like social media's perception, but it is a layer of perception, right? Because most people that don't know you or will never get the chance to know you, this is it.
Here's the thing, right? I think that in our space, in our community, when you are a brown man who is doing his own thing, something that's not very, in line with what everyone else is doing, and you have some sort of like you carry yourself a certain way, you think about yourself a certain way, and you approach the world in a very like, if this doesn't work out for me, or if I feel like it's not going to work out for me, I'll make it work out for me. Right? You have confidence in what you do, then you're met with a lot of criticism because a lot of people aren't comfortable thinking like that. Right? For example, with this podcast, I'm sure that you've had to cut off friends who you've told them, "Hey, I'm going to do this podcast and I think it could go somewhere." And then they're like, "Yo, man, like, yeah, it could, but like what if it doesn't?" And you're like, "I don't want to surround myself with people who think like that."
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I haven't yet,
Yeah.
right? But I 100% get I 100% get the sentiment, right? Because I feel that like I think like a lot, and it kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. I think like when a maybe it is just brown men or just maybe men. I think when men exude or brown men exude like some level of like confidence in self, it's viewed as pure up like arrogance. I think that's what it kind of is, ends up being the perception for you too, right? I think like yo, like you have a certain level of confidence about yourself, whatever, and like your standard for what I want,
Yeah.
right? And then that's perceived as you're an asshole, right?
Yeah.
Like I sound egotistic and narcissistic because I believe that I can do even this,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, who the fuck are you,
Yeah.
right?
It's that whole arrogance thing. And I feel like that ties very much, and I'm gonna say this just because we were talking about the whole pop shift thing, into dating as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel like my personal experience, and this doesn't reflect on anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
right? But this is just my personal experience. I don't put dating as like a super high priority on things that I care about in my
Mm-hmm.
life, just because I've never been somebody like that. Obviously I'll go on dates and I'm very open to meeting people. But am I ever gonna be in a point like at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm actively looking for a relationship? No. Right? Because I believe that when something is meant to be, it'll find you. Right? It's about the energy that you put out and the energy that you receive. And so I sort of progressed through my entire dating thing with just like, okay, cool, I'm gonna give as much as I expect, right? If I want somebody who is compassionate, smart, caring, articulate, then I'm gonna give them exactly that.
You said on the show a little bit differently, and actually wanted to specifically challenge you on that. I think Pip at some point asked you, you don't think that vulnerability breeds vulnerability?
I think it does.
Okay,
Or
but
what
then
did I say? Did I say no? I feel like I
you
said
said
yeah.
no, you said I don't, if you're my friend, I will let you get to know me, but
Yeah.
if you're not, I won't, something like that. And I thought I was gonna specifically question you on that when I was like watching it to
Yeah,
put my
yeah, yeah.
notes
No,
for this.
ask me anything.
And I was like, that I think is something like you should think about, right? Because like I think as like men, brown men, right? Like we come to each other fully like jaded too,
Mhm.
right? Whether about friendships, whether about women,
Yeah.
right? We come jaded because of whatever reason, right? Like our parents couldn't like share any emotions, right? Like whatever, right? Like whatever the actual reason is. So, but I really encourage like my male friends to exude a certain level of vulnerability in all aspects, whether it's with women, whether it's with their boys, right? Because I think that that deepens relationships to a really high
Absolutely.
degree.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Okay.
And I feel like a lot of this uh was not translated well in that episode,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Because when I said like I will not open up to random people, it's exactly what I meant. Like if I'm meeting, if I'm with a friend and I meet some other random people at a party, I'm not going to feel comfortable being vulnerable with these random people,
Hmm.
right? Like, and when I say vulnerable, I'm not going to close myself off to any interaction. I'm not going to be like, yo, I don't want to talk to you. Of course, I'm going to talk to you, right? Of course, we're going to try to get to know each other, but you're not going to get to know certain things about me that I would only show my close friends. That's what I mean by vulnerability, right? In every interaction, you have to open yourself up and, like, pull down your walls just a little bit to let people in so they do the same. That's how you make connections,
Yeah.
even with dating, right? Like when I go on dates, I'm not gonna be like cold as fuck to the person that I'm going on a date with. I'm gonna open up to them. Obviously, I'm gonna tell them things about me, but there's certain things that I'm like, okay, I don't think it's right for you to know this about me at this exact moment. Yeah, and that's what
No,
I meant.
no, no, no. That absolutely makes sense, right? But I think again, like when you say it and it's clipped and it says,
No, exactly.
"Yo,
Yeah,
I just don't, like, I don't want to be vulnerable," right?
yeah,
Like it comes off because I, with the more detailed explanation, of course, right? It's like, yo, like I get that, and something I would just keep in mind, right? Because I think that this is something that like we don't know where the next deep connection is gonna come from, right?
exactly.
Like sometimes, like I like be shocked when like people like I meet them and I'm like a little jaded, so I don't like let them in, right?
Yeah,
But then slowly over the course of time, they show me exactly why they should be like let
yeah,
in,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it is like that growing like bond. Whereas like some people, I feel like I've like met them and I just feel like, oh, like I just want to open up to you, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that happens
I've
too,
had
right?
my
I'm
fair
sure that
share.
happens
Yeah,
in like dating too, right?
all the
Sometimes you
time.
meet like sometimes you meet a girl and you're like, yo, all these girls, it took them 6 months to realize like X, Y, and Z about my past.
Yeah,
I met you 2 weeks in, you knew exactly why my mom
20
fucked me
minutes
up,
in.
right?
20
Like,
minutes in.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
right? And that happens too. And I think that in terms of like human interactions, right? Like that's like one of the most like fun things to see. So I'm glad to
yeah.
see like they closed you off, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying, man. Like whatever you see on the internet, don't believe it at face value.
yeah.
Because
How have you like? Has it fucked with you at all? Like comments, people?
no, 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 no.
Nah.
Here's the thing, right? When I said comments don't bother me, I fully mean it. Because it's not affecting my work, it's not affecting me as a person. Right? I know what I mean, and I fully stand by what I believe in. Am I right about everything? Obviously not. Right? I'm young, I have so much to learn, I have so much growth left in me. Right?
Yo,
So
I want to interrupt you real quick,
yeah.
right? one of the this is just really bothering me. I'm gonna forget, right? This really bothered me. Somebody commented and it was like one of the top comments, right? And it was like, yo, like, can we get somebody that's not just here to bolster their failing modeling career?
Yeah.
And then what really bothered me was the fact that you just told me that you're 24 outside, right? And I was like, damn, that's crazy that somebody saw this video and commented that he has a failing modeling career where this boy is just getting started, right?
I'm just getting started.
Like he's just getting started. And I thought that was the craziest thing. I was like, yo, how can you look at another brown guy? Forget like what you think about him, right? And just be like, yo, he's already failed in his thing. He's 24. He hasn't even gotten a chance to fail at anything, right?
And
Like,
I'll be honest, I've been very lucky with the opportunities and the brands that I've worked with, and lucky in the sense that they gave me a chance, right? I know other models who've spent years in the industry who haven't been able to do what they want to do just yet, and I'm sure that they'll get there. But yeah, you're right. I'm just getting started, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
why do you think that hate comes to us? Like we were talking about this outside, like as like just brown creators, brown men, brown women, right? Like, why is that like like you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like we always take shots at like what the other person's like doing.
Yeah, I think it's just because in today's society, a lot of people are scared, and that fear of failure, that fear of rejection, that fear of having other people talk about them translates into their hate towards other people, right? For example, if you are somebody who works a tech job and then you see like someone who's on the internet saying, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I get to travel for work, I make videos, this is what I do 24/7 and I'm living the best life." You could be someone who looks at that and is like, "Wow, this really inspires me." Or you can look at that and be like, "Wow, like I bet you're like actually hemorrhaging money." Right? You can come at that with hate. It just depends on how you look at it. And I feel like a lot of people aren't mature enough to be like, okay, maybe I don't have to come at this from a place of contempt and a place of like jealousy. Right?
And yo, it's the last bit that you said right there, right? It really boils down to like jealousy, right? Because like anybody who like is absolutely in love with their life and what they do, they don't have time to look at somebody else's and be like, oh, I hate that,
Yeah.
right? Like every single person that it's crazy. Every single person that I saw hate, like, oh, you starting to do like XYZ podcast, right? Yo, within like 2, 3 weeks, it's like, yeah, I'm about to take my podcast seriously too now,
Yeah.
right? And
Ask your
I'm
ask
like,
yourself
you were just
this.
hating on this like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, ask yourself this. Every time you go through a video, right? I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos where you're like, wow, this is kind of stupid. How much hate do you have to have in that moment for you to even consider leaving a comment?
Bro, I have time to do nothing but like and comment, yo, say, yo, this shit is fire, right? Because
Exactly.
if it bother me, like I'm not, it's not taking a second of more of
Yeah,
my time, right?
if it
Like,
really bothers you, if somebody, whatever video you see, really bothers you that much, one, maybe you're not busy enough doing something that could help you, right? Two, maybe like there's some negativity in you that you need to like figure out. Or three, like here's a solution. Turn your phone off, put it down, go do something else.
yeah, because like the
How
additional energy to go fire at somebody is crazy.
it's unnecessary.
Especially because like there's so many like we live in the era of like there's so many things to do. Because anytime you're bored, you don't have to be bored, right? Anytime you're upset doing something, you don't have to do that thing. You can just go on your phone and find the next thing.
Yeah,
You can call whoever the
just
fuck.
keep
There's
scrolling.
never a time where you don't have anything to
Yeah,
do. So how are you still finding the
yeah,
time to go comment, click a bunch of buttons, and say, yo, fuck you?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, who are these people?
Also, what do you gain from commenting that? You think this person is gonna engage in a conversation with you? Like, it means nothing to you
Or
20
them?
seconds after you comment or them.
I really think it ends up being, bro, like it really ends up being like a sickness, right? Because it's like really people who have nothing better to do. And I think that's why like we probably can't even fathom that because it's like, yo, like we live in New York, like we there's always something to do for us, right?
It doesn't
We have
matter.
other things to focus on,
Yeah.
right? But that's like a luxury that we have other things to focus on. Some people in the world hate their job, too lazy to go do the next thing, right? Like just like or whatever it is, like they just hate like you.
Yeah. No, people love to hate. That's
Yeah.
the main thing.
But I want to change this narrative with you, right? I think that you look at that in the world, right? And like you identify it and it annoys you because you see it, right? But I also think that there's a lot, if you look for it, there's also like a lot of like love in the world. And I know like we kind of jaded to that too, right? But there is like a lot of love in the world of like people who are really supporting, right? People who really believe in you. And it come from all types of pockets, right? Because honestly, if you do inspire somebody, that is one of the greatest things in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like that
No,
they feel like, yo, I don't know you, but I have enough love to be like,
yeah.
yo, I love
No,
you.
I'm gonna tell you a little story right now, right? And this sort of like ties back in how I even started modeling. Basically, and this, ties into your point too about the whole like looking at people and sort of like maybe closing myself off to the potential support, the potential connections, but now opening myself back up. The way that I started modeling, right, was almost exactly a year ago when South Asian New York Fashion Week was happening, the first one, the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And I had applied like way earlier in the year. And my old roommate also applied and she got a call back, but then I didn't. But I was just like, oh, yeah, I want to come support you, right? I want to come see you walk. So we both flew to New York with one of my other friends. And she didn't, once we landed in New York, she didn't get any email about coming in for the fittings or castings or whatever. But then I did. So I was like, okay, cool. I just have to go to the spot like tomorrow morning. I don't know how any of this works. I show up, see the founders of, South Asian New York Fashion Week, meet the designers, and then I get fitted. And I was like, all right, cool. I walked the show. At that show, got, scouted for another show, walked that show. And then after that, I was like, all right, cool. Like, this is incredible, right? This is like obviously going to be like a one-time thing for me, right? Because I work in tech, right? I did at the moment or at the time. And so I was just like, yeah, this is an amazing one-time opportunity. Maybe I'll do it again next year. I don't know, whatever. I go back home to the Bay Area, and the first thing I do is I go meet some of my friends who are also in tech, do their own thing in San Francisco. And they asked me about the trip, and I was like, oh, hey, it's crazy. I got to walk like South Asian New York Fashion Week. I got to walk a fashion show. I show them pictures, and they're like, oh, what? Like, you think you're a model now? I was just like, no, I don't. It was a fun experience. I had a great time. I just wanted to share the memories with you. But just their reaction to that made me not want to tell them anything or show them stuff. And so after that, I was just like, this feels weird because I was proud of what I did. I was like happy, but now I don't even want to like show people this because is this just the reaction I'm going to get for everything that I do regarding like fashion, regarding modeling? And so I moved to New York, right? The first 2 months, nothing happens, right? Because I also just don't put myself out there. One of my friends, Slacia, who you should also have on this podcast, she was the one who was like, yo, like you should try getting signed. She led me through that whole process, got scouted, sat on my contracts for like 2 months for my agencies. And then in January, right, when things were rough with my job, everyone was getting laid off at the time, right? Everyone in tech. And so I was one of those people. I got laid off. The next day, I was like, this is perfect timing. Signed with my agencies. 2 weeks later, walked New York Fashion Week. Since then, it's been like a snowball of where I've been working with all these different designers. And the one thing that I realized was that same hate that carried over from the people back in the Bay Area who were just like, "Oh, like what, you think you're a model now? Like who do you think you are?" Through the people that I met here, that hate turned to love, and so many people, Slacia, Osama, like the list goes on, have shown me nothing but love. And it comes from me opening up and being like,
You know what's funny though? The people who you're naming,
yeah,
right? This is what they have in common because I see it. It's the people that are also doing something.
yeah,
You know what it is? Because like it's the people who are only doing something, right? If because they're doing something, they're content with what they're doing.
yeah,
They can look at you and feel like real love for you because they're like, "Yo, I know the happiness that he's going through right now," right?
yeah,
But like for people who like hate what they do or hate have some level of self hate for themselves, they're looking at you like, "Damn, he gets to do what he does,
yeah.
right? And I don't."
The only times in my life when I've ever been at a point where I'm looking at something with so much hate and contempt that I'm like, wow, like this bothers me, even though I know it shouldn't, is when I'm genuinely not happy with who I am or what I'm doing. Because when you're happy, you don't have time or like you don't care for the little things, the things that are going to bring you down. Because you're like, no, I'm riding that high. I want to take this higher.
Yo, I really came into a situation like that this week, right? Like it's crazy you said that
Mm,
because like I'm like there's something happening with like a friend, right? And I was like, damn, this like kind of does. It was like something so like petty, right? And I was like, this kind of honestly does not deserve my bandwidth.
yeah,
Like I have like so many other things to like love and care about, right? Like I got friends and family that love and care about. I got like a career that I love and care about, right? It's like I do not have time for this, right?
yeah,
And I think like when you have that switch and back to like working with the people, like you feel fire hanging out with the people who like get that a little bit, right?
yeah,
I've like noticed that like people, my friends that are like happy, right? And I'm just like, oh, like you're happy, I'm happy, even if we're not always together. I love what you're doing. You love
yeah,
what I'm doing.
yeah,
Amazing, right? Like we love each other's lives. We got no opinions, no nothing, right? And I'm like, that's how it should be because you're happy with your life. I'm happy with my life. You're my friend. I want you to be happy with your life. All right, amazing.
exactly, yeah. It's
It's
an energy, you know.
it is an energy, right? And I think like I think you become cynical to it to a little degree in the sense of like you realize that how much you care about that, and I like seek it out now.
Mm.
It's like a high to me, like to find those people.
Yeah.
Like I love any interaction. Like I want to feel like energized after. Like I don't want to even feel like there's like subtle hate.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to
No, the
just,
worst thing about leaving a conversation is being like, damn, like that was kind of draining. It's the worst fucking feeling, man.
bro. The worst feeling is when it's like subtle hate. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't like when the hate is straight up and strong.
Yeah.
I'm just
Or
like,
are you talking about when you leave a conversation, you're like, yo, what did that person mean by that one thing?
yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
people, I don't know if it's people in New York, but people are just good at doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm good enough to discern that that's what you're doing too,
Yeah.
right? Because anytime I'm all like, what did he mean, my little new venture?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What
It's
do
like,
you mean, my
why
little?
you have me second guessing my own
Yeah,
things?
what do you mean, my little podcast?
Yeah.
Or what do you
Yo,
mean, my little
fucking-
modeling career?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like little things like that. Those are the blatant ones. Don't use little because I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, right? But nah, I think like to a degree, like when you back to it being an energy and back to it being a feeling, I don't even try to pay attention to it anymore.
Yeah.
Like I try to just be like, you know what? I'm only gonna focus on the positive, and in my head, that's the only thing that matters. Because
Yeah.
unless it's real issues and you have something to say to me,
That's what I'm saying, man. You have one life,
yeah,
right? Why focus on the things that are bringing you down?
yes, yo, talk to me like in terms of like modeling, right? Like who have you gotten the opportunity to work with? Who are you kind of looking to get to work with?
Yeah. Okay. So I can't talk too much about upcoming projects that
Okay,
much just because of like NDAs and stuff. But in terms of who I have worked with and potential like recycling of projects, Meyer Girothra, Awet, Prada, right? Prada's like the biggest name that I worked with so far.
okay,
But as of right now, I've got a connection with them. And so anytime they want like a male model, right? I'm getting like texts every 3 weeks being like, oh hey, we have this thing, would you be interested? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Fuck yeah. Um, Upcoming projects, I'll say one, Sabyasachi. That's gonna be exciting. But apart from that, can't really talk about too much.
that's fire.
Yeah.
Yo, another. I was just thinking about when you said the Savisachi thing. I was like, yo, another reason that people, you're giving them a reason with the TikToks.
Yeah.
You're giving them a
Which
reason.
one specifically?
Yo,
Like all of them?
huh?
All of them?
All of them, dog.
Hey,
Like because I like we met, I obviously do my due diligence,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, okay, like let me look at everything. And then I'm just like, oh no, he's giving them a reason. I just
Yeah.
thought about that because of the Sabyasachi thing.
Yeah, dude, man, I have fun on the app. It's fun like playing into that character sometimes because I know that I look a certain way, and people will assume that I am a certain way, and maybe I am, right? But like, I do my best to be a good person. I do my best to like spread good energy, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, if you think I'm an asshole, if you think I'm a fuckboy, like I'll play into that idea a bit.
I think you really are playing
Yeah,
into it now.
just a
Like,
little
because
bit.
now I'm thinking about the TikTok that I'm talking about. And it's like, wait, did he just shoot his shot on a TikTok like clip?
Which one?
When you clip some other
Oh, the puja? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
dude. Dude, I recorded that and I was sitting in my kitchen laughing so hard I was crying. And I was just like, that's when things are fun, you know? I love TikTok because it's one of those platforms where I can just have fun. I don't have to care about how this like portrays me because I have no following. It could just be like shitty, stupid videos. Right? Like brands aren't gonna look at my tick. Also, I'm not doing anything like
No, 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 yeah.
so I'm like, brands aren't gonna look at this and be like, oh my god, we can't use him. If anything, maybe they'll think it's funny. Maybe it'll give them a reason to work with me.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
they'll see
No,
that I have a personality.
no, I thought it was hilarious. I was like, yo, the fact that like he did that, and I was like, yo, he's definitely sitting at home cracking up at this because
Yeah.
I get it. I'm just like, yo, there's no way he thinks that like he knows the reaction that he's gonna get, right?
Yeah.
He would have to be absolutely oblivious. And I'm like, bro, you're not, right? Like,
I'm like-
you know that the reaction that it's gonna get when it
Yeah.
comes out. That's funny as hell though. But like, yo, I think that in terms of like just are you even dating in New York now?
So I'm not in a relationship. I'm not like
Yeah, I'm about to
actively-
get he's about to
Uh,
tell me he has a situation
No, no, no,
without
no,
telling
no,
me he
no.
has a
I'm not.
situation.
I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not like in a situationship. No talking stages. None of that. I'm like, okay,
You think dating in New York City has made you jaded?
yeah. So I mean, jaded in the sense that it's like turned me off to the idea of dating.
It's mechanical, right?
It's dude, it's like I don't understand how people run it like a game. Like okay, Pip, when she talked about going on 100 dates, what they cut out was the fact that she said I've been on over 100 dates in 4 years. That's 2 dates a month over 4 years. You know how easy it is for a girl? Like she's smart, articulate, pretty, whole
Yeah.
package. You know how easy it is for someone like her to get more than 2 dates a month? it's like clockwork.
Bro, because bro, even if the girls aren't dating, these New York City boys are
Oh no,
dating,
dude, they're fucking
bro. Like,
animals,
you
man.
know what I'm saying? Like, I think like because it's such a populated area, and
Yeah.
like, bro, Instagram, Hinge, Tinder, all of these shits,
Nah,
they fucked it up because there's way too often.
yeah.
You ever read Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari? It talks about how like our the reason like we can't like find people to like marry and settle down with is because we just have access to way too many people. Like he
100%.
puts out this study where it's like, yo, like most people, and I forgot what era, married somebody within 5 miles like 80% of the time. I'm making up the
Yeah.
number, but it was high, right? And he's like, yo, you can't do that anymore because everywhere you go, bro, you could go find a girl in Brazil, you could find a girl in the
Yeah.
Bay Area,
No, social
right?
media has given you access to people around the world, right? Like, for example, I think right before Fashion Week of this year, in September, I was traveling to like Singapore and India, and even there, right, I was on Hinge because I was just like, why the fuck not? I'm here for like a little bit. Like, you know how easy it is to just get a date? It's quick. If I didn't have these dating apps, if I didn't have social media, I would have never met somebody in that space, right? Like I could be here and set up a date for my next travel to Singapore right now. I
But
don't
that's
have
the
to
thing,
be
like, it
there.
fuck it absolutely fucks
Yeah.
up the dating thing, right? Because it's like, yo, if any little thing is not exactly what I want,
Oh, so true.
I could just be like, yo, there's a million other people out there. Let me just go find the one that does,
I
right?
think I think that's an issue that everyone runs into, and me included, right? I'm
Mhm.
very much also like that. Where if I like someone, I've turned into someone, and I want to remove myself from this as much as I can, but turned into someone who is not willing to compromise because I'm now looking at this partner, this potential partner, and thinking to myself, okay, if you don't have this one little thing, I'll just find somebody else who does.
But yeah, I
And
and I get that it happens,
it's
but
not a good thing.
I yeah, I would say it's like not a
It's
good thing,
not a
right?
good thing.
Because I think like we have that now even like outside of dating, right? Like people aren't willing to like grind it out, right? Like
Yeah.
we were talking about like yo, why people look at listen, everybody thinks that they've been model for 2 months, right?
Yeah.
But then when it comes down to like, yo, like let me sit and like actually do the work, right? You realize like, oh, this isn't fun anymore, right? Like let me go just do the next venture, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, you haven't even given a chance for you to figure out what this venture is, right?
Exactly.
Is 2 months enough to figure out whether you're an amazing model or a bad model? No, right?
Now people love the idea of like, okay, cool. This is supposed to be something that's like given to me. Like I deserve this. And if it's not easy, then maybe it's not right. But that's not how the world works. Right? There's so many people who've spent years of their life, for example, trying to start up a podcast, trying to
Yeah.
model. Right? Even the biggest models now were nobodies for 6 years in the space, signed with the biggest agencies before they became like literal supermodels. Right? Like
People really think it's like, yo, the first one I put out, right, is going to be absolutely fire. Bro, you are not
never,
that talented,
never,
right?
never.
Like you are not that talented.
Yeah.
Like I don't give a fuck
And
how talented you are,
even
right?
even even if it is fire, who knows? Like, what's to say that that's gonna catch and that's gonna like genuinely kickstart your career,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like, it doesn't. People forget that there's so much work that goes into an overnight success.
Because and I'm sure it definitely happens more so in like the craft that you're in, right? In terms of modeling, because people are just like, oh, like I'm pretty, right? Like I'm prettier than whatever, right? Like let me just do a quick photo shoot with my boy who does photography, right?
Mhm.
And then it'll blow up my career, girl,
Yeah, like
boy.
you
There is
literally never
how
know.
many more pretty people, right?
Yeah,
Like you think that you just because you pretty is like,
yeah.
bro, go to work, right?
Like
Like
it's crazy, and I've seen this firsthand too, right? I get jaded sometimes in the space because at Fashion Week, I'll go into a casting, right? They'll ask for me, they'll ask my agency to send me. I'll go in, and I'll be like, all right, cool. I know for a fact I'm one of the three, maybe four Indian guys that they'll see. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like it should be in the bag for me, right? As a Indian man in the space, I know for a fact that there's nobody who looks like me. And I don't mean that in like oh, like I'm cocky, I look good. I'm just saying that like, I think that to get into the space, you have to have a distinct look. To get signed, you have to have a distinct look. And I'm the only Indian guy signed to my agency, right? So when I walk into one of these castings, in my head, I believe, okay, there's gonna be nobody else that looks like me. So I'm like, okay, cool. There's a pretty strong chance that I get a call back. What was the point here? Yeah. like you literally never know.
You don't know. And I
You
think
literally never
like
know.
I think the point that you're making is valid, right? But and I want you to know that that's like a part of a reason that you probably are signed, right? Because you have to have that belief to even like do this thing to a degree, right?
Mhm.
Because like you have to have the belief that yo, like nobody like me.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody like
I
me.
remember the point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can walk into this casting and be like, okay, cool. Like I'm the only Indian guy in this space who looks like me. Even if there's other Indian guys going to this casting, they're not going to look like me, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be at the same casting, right? Because these casting directors, they don't have time to look at people who look the exact same, right? They'll choose me and a couple other Indian people, right? There's also not a lot of Indian male models signed in New York. But anyway, I go to this casting, I do my thing, I go home, and then I look at who they actually have walk the show, and I'm like, wow, you're all like 6'4" black dudes. At that point, I'm not gonna look at the space and be like, damn, I'm not cut out for this space. No, that just means I wasn't cut out for the show, right? You can't look at something like that and discourage you. But a lot of people do because they're like, oh man, like I didn't walk South Asian New York Fashion Week. That means I'm never gonna be a model. No, it just means you weren't right at the
Go
moment.
find the next gig,
Yeah.
right? Some of the see, and back to the original point, right? And that's why they can't like actually pick something because most of them don't actually care about anything. They just want to be popping and whatever, right? I could
People,
tell somebody like, "Yo, I'm gonna make you a podcast star tomorrow." They never thought about podcasting in their life, but they're gonna be like, "Yo, yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna do it,"
yeah.
right? Just to be like, "Yo, I'm seen, I'm popping," right?
People care more about virality than anything else now. Right. And I've had this conversation with so many people where I'm like, there's a huge distinction between internet famous and industry famous.
Yo, that was the who's the male model that you showed me outside?
Uh, who?
My man in a turban did Tommy
Oh,
Hilfiger.
Shaminder.
Shaminder, right? I'm looking at Shaminder's, I'm all like, oh, his Instagram, like whatever it is, right? And then I look at the brands that he's working for, and I'm all like, oh, he's like
Yeah,
for real, for real. Like he doesn't care
yeah.
about this internet fame, right? He's like,
Bro is not internet famous, but he's industry famous.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that carries you and your career and your pedigree so much more than just like a little viral clip. A lot of people, once they go viral once, or they chase that virality once, they're like, cool, as long as everyone or in my space or like in some spaces talking about me for a week, I'm happy, I'm done. But you can't chase that because that is so fickle. That's how social media works. That's why social media is just social media, right?
That's because a lot of them are just building, like they're just trying to build their brand, right?
Yeah.
But like it's like, yo, like what are you actually building,
Yeah, if you
right?
pull
Like
away just the surface layer of a lot of these influencers or a lot of people popping right now, and you're like, okay, cool. Other than this little shtick that you're doing, what are you doing?
Like, are you getting to work? Oh, yo, you know how many of y'all caught one viral clip, right? But y'all can't move those numbers at all. Like, y'all have 10,000 followers and y'all should be getting like 15 to 25 likes. Like, you expect me to believe that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's because you haven't really built anything,
Yeah,
right? You built one viral hit that had 52,000 views and nobody looked at your shit ever again.
yeah.
Because why? There's not really anything there, right?
Also, that also leads people into pigeonholing themselves because they do something once that's viral. They're like, oh, cool. Like, let me just keep doing this, right? And then they do that, and then they build a following who only cares for them for that one little thing. And now that's all they can ever do because the second they step out of their comfort zone and try to do something else, their followers don't care. And now they haven't even created their own brand. Their followers have created their brand for them, right? And that's how you get stuck. That's how you literally dig a hole for yourself. That's what a lot of these creators have done right now.
It's you know who I think is doing a very interesting thing, and I want to see how he transverses a little bit further. Right? Is Prayag,
You were gonna say that, yeah.
bro? Like, no, I'm like very very curious, right?
Same.
Because he got a hit, but the thing is he's still going, and he's like somebody like if you go like he's been making TikToks, right? He's been
Yeah.
making content. It's not like he caught one like early, right? So we'll see. Like, I'm very very curious to see how he's gonna like move around, right? Because he's got a People magazine thing. Like, again, is it just one viral hit or can you build now something from this, right? But he went viral in like a different way, right? Where it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, there's difference, like, there's levels to this shit, y'all, right? Like,
Yeah.
some of y'all hit like 50,000 views on like TikTok and y'all be geeked, right?
Yeah.
But there's like levels to it, right? There's also like that level, right? Where he's like, hey, People magazine, can y'all do this, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm curious, but like, does he turn it into a brand? Does it turn it into something, right? Because to your point, like, you got to have like something that you're building, like a career, something like otherwise, like what is the point of this, right? Like, are you building a business? Are you building a brand? Like, what is it? Like, I think a lot of people don't have a vision of it. They just want to be seen.
A lot of people have this idea of motion with no end goal, and I think that's when you flounder yourself. There's a lot of people in this space who are like designers, who are models, who are creators, artists, whatever. And they're like, cool, as long as I'm doing something, that's all that matters. But it's like, no, you could still be moving in the wrong direction, right? You need to focus on an end goal. And even if the final product that you create is not that end goal, at least you know that it's in that ballpark.
Yeah, because I was gonna originally disagree, but now I think I got what you're saying. Yeah, because I think a lot of us like we think like what we call floundering is just redirection, right? Like have a goal, right? But it might redirect in the way that you get to said
Yeah,
goal, and it might land you somewhere different. But you need to have a direction, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Like you don't need to have a destination, but you do need a
Yeah,
direction,
I
right?
don't believe in like vision boards and like
Yeah,
end goals because I'm like the second that you do, then I personally think you start to gatekeep the possibility, not gatekeep, but like limit yourself from the possibilities of what could happen down the line even further. Right? For example, like if my end goal in this whole modeling thing was like, all right, cool, I just want to walk New York Fashion Week and I do it. In my head, I'm like, cool, I've done what I came here to do. But if I never had an end goal, if I'm like, I'm just gonna do everything, right, and come for everything, I do New York Fashion Week. It did not phase me, right? Because I was like, cool, what's next?
but again, that's why some of us like, yo, when we hit that one virality, we got what we wanted out of this, right?
Yeah,
Like, yay, I hit 10,000 likes, right? And then they're like, oh, okay, I hit 10,000 likes, I made it, right? And that's where they stop, right?
I
They
think
have that one hit, and that's where they stop because
yeah,
that's yo. But again, I think that that's where whether you last or not, right? Like, are you gonna go do it again?
you need to be somebody who's always asking yourself what's next, or else like you will get drowned.
No, you don't have to be, right? Like that's I think that's the other part, right? Some of y'all are going to do something and be like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm just done.
Yeah,
And that's good, right? Like do your truth. But if you say you're serious about it, be serious about it.
yeah,
Like say like if that's what you want, then you gotta go out and like do it, right? But don't hate on everybody else because they're getting the looks that you want because you're not doing it. They are, right? And I think like a lot of us, and again, like get trapped in that like level of like hate, right? Where it's like, yo, rather than me go build, I'm just gonna hate on this and hope
yeah,
that like it fails too. It's like, yo, what is that getting out of you?
yeah.
Um,
Are you dating anyone right now?
no,
Oh,
recently single.
recently single.
Yes, yes,
Are
yes,
you in
yes.
a point? Are you at a point where you're like looking for anything?
I gotta work, bro.
Yeah,
I gotta work for real. Like I'm a little bit older than you, right? Like I
yeah.
gotta go to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I like know what that entails with me, and I just know that I'm not gonna be able to like give that time to like whoever, right? But yeah, I want to go to work.
But
But
that
like,
doesn't mean that you're closed off to something.
yeah, it does actually right
It
now.
does.
Right now it
Okay.
does.
Okay.
I gotta like really go to work. You know what I'm saying? Like when we talk
100%.
about like hunger outside, right?
Yeah.
Like, yo, I gotta go to work, right?
Yeah.
Yo, I do this thing on the podcast. I every podcast with it now. I do something called call your shot. It's like it's my version of like, I don't know, manifesting, saying something out there, right? Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, right? But I'm gonna ask you right now, Nick Rati, call your shot. Something you want to do, something next couple of years, whatever.
There's too many things.
Come on, give me one.
It's too many things. I'm working on like three different projects right now, but one thing that I definitely want to do in the future is be a creative director, like an industry known creative director, not for like a brand, not for a specific company, right? But someone who people consult for projects where they're like, okay, cool, like we have this idea, we don't know who can make it happen. No, we do. It's Nikhil, right? And then they bring me in, and then I just direct everything, right? I love that aspect of it too. Right? Like, for example, with the Meyer Gerother thing, the way that that campaign even came out was, he asked me to come in for one of his shows, so I was like, all right, cool. But that morning, I was shooting something for Prada, and so everything with the Prada campaign, I shot myself. I went to him and I was like, "Oh, hey, like, obviously, cool, fit me up, whatever." And then before I left, I was like, "Yo, can I direct a campaign for you?" He's just like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "I have an idea. All right, let me just direct a campaign for you. Here's the idea. Here's the location." I didn't really have a plan, but I feel like I was able to provide him with a vision of what I was thinking. So I showed him one picture from the product thing that I shot. He's like, "Oh, I love it." Right. And from that, like 2 weeks later, um, I took Ashna and Salacia. We shot this one place. It was like a 3-hour shoot, and then he used that for his like most recent campaign.
Fire.
Um, and I loved everything that went into that back end part of it too. Because it's one thing to be a model. It's one thing to be like, all right, cool. I just have to show up on set, try to look a certain way, right? Put on some clothes, and then just like stand there. But I love the logistics behind like, all right, cool. Now I get full control over how this campaign's gonna go, everything that's like being portrayed on the screen. I love that storytelling aspect of it.
Yo, that's fire. Like, yo, I'm glad that you have a goal, right? And it's that goal. Yo, I want to end this podcast by saying, yo, this is a nice guy, V. Like, be nice to him outside, bro. Like, I'm stamping. Look at the smile. See, like, it's different now that he got to like explain it to y'all, right? Yo, Nick, appreciate you doing this. Until next time, V. I'm excited, bro.
Always.
All right, yo.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, yo. Thank y'all for listening. Peace. Oh, yo,
Ooh.
this.